Hey guys, it's your girl Coco back at it with another video. Oh my goodness. So we've had a few things transpire since the announcing of Zeta and Timmy no longer being together. Now, on the podcast with Morale, where Zeta told her side from her perspective why the breakup happened. Now, let me note first, I know I said it in my last video, but just in case you haven't watched that or whichever, you haven't had time to go back, if you're a part of the family, I always believe in telling your truth, telling your side, if that's how you feel like you need to do. And when you come from a public relationship that began in the public eye, some people may feel like they owe it to their fans or to the public to tell why it didn't work out, especially, again, like I said in my last video, if it seemed to come to an abrupt stop. So I thought it was completely fair for her to tell her side. Now, when she was telling her story, I felt she mentioned Timmy's sister as a part of her story. I felt like she was telling it from a matter-of-fact standpoint, not in a messy way, not to try to tear anybody down, but these are the facts. This is how, I felt when it was done to me, or this is how I took it, and boom, boom, matter-of-fact, move on. Now, so Timmy's sister, now for me, Timmy's sister coming back, if she felt the need because her name was mentioned to say, oh, this is my perspective, completely fine with that. And I don't care. Now I know, obviously, I'm a fan of Zeta. It's like I'd be lying. It's obvious. But I do believe in being fair. I do. And sometimes, obviously, it is hard to be, unbiased. But I'm all about people telling their perspectives. You have a right to tell your story. And she has a right to tell hers. Because sometimes perspectives can be different. But no. That's not what Timmy's sister did. And I was really disappointed because not only did she not tell her side or give her perspective, I felt, was taunting Zeta and taunting her fans and just kind of being nasty. And I was and it was so unnecessary. It was thoughtless. It was foolish. And, I would hope, I was hoping that she would be above that because it was just unnecessary. I can't even say I was hoping because I wasn't even expecting that. I just thought it would be different. So feel free to check out the messages, okay, until you can see what she's talking about there. I just thought, man, you've made it worse and for yourself than it had to be or than I think it would have been. And worse for your brother. Now, again, Timmy can stand on his own. I think, obviously Zeta said some things that did not put him in the best light for some of his actions and behavior. However, a lot of times people are going to be aligned with, your group by association. And so, of course, he's going to be associated with his sister because that's the only reason she has any kind of connection to Zeta. So if people were in turn going to give her the benefit of the doubt or want to hear her side of the story, now what Zeta said, even though, again, like I said, I felt like she said it very matter-of-factly, now it's hard for me to look and listen to what you're saying and think that you had anything but ill intent. And I was just disappointed, guys. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. It was so unnecessary, and it just, it feeds back into that nasty narrative. And so I don't know, we shall see in the coming days kind of, what that looks like and what that's gonna be. Because Timmy also did come out with a video, and he felt like that some of Zeta's stuff was not the perspective that he had. So he did say he'll be coming out with another video in the next with a video kind of giving his side of the story in a couple of days. So, guys, we're going to break it down, okay? We're going to talk about it. We're going to always meet in the comments. But y'all know we always meet with love. So I don't know, we shall see what that happens. But what I did want to talk about, because I saw was not a lot, but I saw enough backlash with Zeta and people maybe feeling decepted, kind of feeling like she was being deceptive or like they were blindsided. And I wanted to talk about that because y'all know, again, I always try my best to be fair because I really sat back and reflected on it because I can see that. But what I do know, again, I'll keep saying and trying to bring a human side to everybody because we have the privilege of not being necessarily in the public eye. So things that we do behind closed doors, our relationships, are not being analyzed in every little word that we say. So it can get tough because a lot of times when we're expressing, especially if there's high emotions and we're not necessarily in the best place with somebody, and it doesn't even mean you're trying to tear them apart. I'm just telling my story of how I got here. And sometimes when we're telling that story, sometimes we do forget to include the whole story in its totality, because we're just in the moment of, this is why it happened, and this is why for me it doesn't work. And that's what I felt in that moment. And so I wanted to address some of those things, because I know it came up as far as, like, I know one of the bigger things that I saw a lot was she mentioned, about her connection with Timmy, and her connection with Timmy and God, and their connection together, and how they prayed together and do these things. And then on Murad's podcast, she said that, well, pretty much that was not where he was. They didn't have the same kind of relationship with God, and prayer was not in it any longer. But she didn't say any longer. And sometimes, like, those little things sometimes can make a huge difference. But what I always say, guys, if you're a part of the family, then you know I'm always talking about multiple things. Multiple truths can exist in one space. It doesn't mean that Timmy, for me, I took it as I reflected upon my own self. And y'all know, if you're a part of my family, then you know I'm about to go into story time. But I do think that sometimes things can change. So it doesn't mean that he never prayed and he was never trying to be this person. What I honestly believe is, and this is using Timmy's own words, and I said it in my last video, Timmy did not expect Zeta. He made it very clear. Something also Timmy said, and it was either on the show or like on one of the videos that they've done. He said that he felt like Zeta was out of his league, or he said something to that effect. So when we take that in mind, I think that sometimes you've got the person you didn't expect. So now here we are. I have this person that I did not expect to be with. I think that they're out of my league. I've got America looking at me. And then when we take into account that his father, he's coming from a religious background, where his father is a pastor, and you have all eyes on you. So of course, typically when we have all eyes on us, we want to put our best foot forward. And I will continue to say, I don't think that Timmy's and his emotions that we saw on the show were fake. I don't. I said it in my last video again, like, when you're in an isolated space, whether it be just for that, whichever, you need a person. And I do think that the bond that we saw in that space was real. And he was trying to live up to what he thought America wanted to see him as, possibly coming from a background where you have your family looking at you, or you possibly have a congregation looking at you. I think he was trying to live up to that, and then live up to this person who he didn't expect to be what he thought she wanted and needed him to be. Now, that's beautiful in some sense, but anybody who knows that when you're being something that you're not, and it's not authentic, then it can make issues arise. And also later down the line, which I think is what happened, lead to resentment. So the person that I think Zeta met and knew was not necessarily the real Timmy. And it doesn't mean that there weren't elements sprinkled in there of the real Timmy, but again, maybe he was being something that he thought he needed to be rather than who he was. And then maybe if he was himself, then maybe she would have really liked the real Timmy. But if I don't necessarily know the real Timmy, then it's hard to say what I do or don't. And so I think when you get outside the villa and you start to get it back into real life, because you cannot keep up the charade. And again, and I keep reiterating, I'm not saying this from an ugly standpoint that's to tear Timmy down. But when you get back out into the real world and you're trying to keep it up, well, you start showing elements of yourself. So from Zeta's standpoint, when you start changing, it seems as though, like, well, what's going on? I don't like this. Now, it doesn't mean as a judgment of I don't like you. I don't know you to be this person. So to me, this is like, it's coming kind of from left field. And so that's why I took it when Zeta was talking about things. We did do all these things, but then stuff started coming out as though, whoa, this is not who you are. And this is like, it could be confusing. And so that, again, would lead to resentment, because now if I'm Timmy and I'm listening to some of the things you're saying, then I'm going to take it as though you think something's wrong with me. But again, that if I'm Zeta, that's not the person I knew. So it's not necessarily a criticism of you. It's just a criticism of, like, this is not who I knew you to be. And so in turn, there's judgment, or at least it appears like there's judgment coming from both sides, resentment coming from both sides. And we know that will never, ever work. So then we do start getting nasty comments where if you stay in something, again, that's not based in truth, then you do sometimes start saying nasty stuff, and it can go both ways. But I'll tell you from my own, and I'm telling you based off my own self. Some years ago, before I met my husband, I met a guy. His name was Judah, and I was young and, just coming like from college, and, well, no, I was still in college, but nonetheless, he was just everything. He was gorgeous. He was passionate about justice, passionate about the environment, all these things. And as I got to know him, because I'd seen him at a few little things where he was speaking. So I look at him as like a Fred Hampton from the Black Panther Party, because he was passionate about the things I was passionate about. But he was also just like delicate like a flower. He could be just so calming. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in love. And so when I got the opportunity to speak with him and kind of go on a couple of dates, like just where it was just us, I always joke because I am a dork, and I was one of those kids who read those like encyclopedias just full of all kind of information. So what it has allowed me to do is always be able to navigate through different spaces, because I love learning and I love knowledge. And so as he was talking about stuff, I was able to finesse myself, through a lot of conversation. Now, of course, I do think a lot of our things align, but I still didn't think that, in a sense, I'm almost worthy of him, in a sense, because of just what I thought he was. He was just his presence, all this. And so I remember sitting down, and I was vegan at the time. I was vegan. I've been a vegan for years. So when he sat down and he was just talking about him being a vegan, I was like, okay, this is great, because I'm a vegan too. Then he was like, oh, I eat raw food. Me too. Knowing damn well I was not on a raw food diet, guys. So here I am now. Every time we go out, we have to go to raw food places, or we're amongst other friends and things that were friends of his who are, into raw food diets. And so it didn't stop there, guys. I was going to keep, again, letting the charade go on, because I'm like, I really like this person, and our connection was so good. But again, it was based not completely in honesty. So this was a kicker. So he said he loved riding bikes, and I love riding too, in a sense. Now, I ride until I want to ride, and then I put my bike on the bus if it's going too far, and then I get off, and then I ride again. He was really, really just into riding, but he was also a minimalist. So it didn't have to be like a special bike, like where you go out and buy $1,000 bike. You ride whatever you have. Well, y'all, I had a beach cruiser. I had like a little cruiser bike. And so it is not built for going up and down hills and all this nonsense that he was doing. So one day he's like, well, let's ride our bikes, and we'll go here and there and not a little basket. So he's like, we can just go, because again, like he's very just into the environment and protecting. So I don't know. I felt like it was 20 miles. 30 miles. I don't know. Like, I know we went from one city to another city, literally around a mountain. We stopped a few places. And let me just tell you, I never called him back again. I ghosted him. And I felt so embarrassed, and I felt so just ashamed. But I could not do that, y'all. I could not, because I have told this man that I'm into all these things. That literally almost killed me, trying to keep up with a lie. And I think back now as a more mature adult, and like, man, like we did have a lot in common. And I think that my personality could have been enough. But like, granted, now I'm married, so I'm grateful that things turned out the way they did. But I'll never know, like, would he have really liked just me, the authentic me, if I shared that? Because it's not his fault, because it was me who I made it up in my head that I was not good enough, and that I was going to be the person that I thought he wanted me to be, instead of just being myself and sharing it. So then, of course, if I would have stayed in that situation, and I would have look like, I can't do this no more. Like, you told me you were into this. Or like, if I stayed in it, it's like, so can I cook this just a little bit longer? But I thought you were, no, I lied. And then it could have been completely okay. But some people also are very much, into telling the truth. So then it's like my credibility is taken away, because I have been not completely honest. So then it's like you don't know where to draw the line with that. So I say all that to say, I take that, I feel like there was a real connection, and some of it was based in truth. But even if you look at some of Timmy when he first came in the villa, when the time that him and Zeta got together, because y'all know, if you look at my first videos with Timmy, I was like, oh my God, he gets on my nerves with these riddles and rhyming and some of this. I was like, it's not for me, Lord. Okay. And then I felt like he started to mature in some ways, and just he showed a different side. Now, I thought that it was a different side, and it doesn't mean, again, that he doesn't have any maturity in that. Because even in his video yesterday, however you feel about him, I did think that he came across like he could handle it with some maturity. Now, you know, whether it's based in truth or not, because again, you know, it sucks when you have somebody who's associated with you, almost in a sense, bringing discredit or discrediting kind of anything you say before you say it. But, you know, I'm trying to listen and be fair and just hear perspectives. Because again, sometimes the truth is there from both parties. It's just different perspectives. But when he came in, I was just like, okay, well, then I saw the switch up and I was like, oh, you know, so this is a different side and this is that, and he's into this and he's into that. But in reality, maybe, you know, maybe he wasn't. And maybe he was on a different journey, but he felt like, again, all eyes are on him. We're looking, we're judging. If you got, again, like a family what's been religious and you're based out of church, you got a congregation with eyes, possibly some maybe even wanting to support you. But also, as we notice, his, you know, his parents didn't come, which made sense, again, if his dad's a pastor. Why, if you were on a show, you guys are playing with dildos, we got thongs up the butt, all these things. I could see why Pastor Pandolfi would not want to be on the show when the parents come. So no faulting anybody there. But, you know, again, this all may be playing inside of his head. And so I just, you know, so it just made me reflect. So again, like, so when Zeta's telling her story from her perspective and she's saying, well, this man isn't this, and this didn't add up. But before she said we did this, and this, I just took it as that it was, and maybe she'll clarify, you know, but I'm just telling you just from my perspective, just from my own experience, is that's how I took it, is that he was this. And then I thought, well, maybe he presented this because of this, and this. And that just kind of is what it is. Now, we will hear his perspective so we can go, you know, and dive a little bit deeper and see just where lines crossed, where stuff was missed. And perhaps maybe, you know, everybody wasn't their authentic selves. But I would like to hear a little bit more of that from his side. And I still think that Marad gave an excellent interview. I like that Zeta was, you know, being authentic and allowed a space where she was able to just kind of give the full story as she saw it. So I definitely welcome that. And, you know, and I hope that everybody, you know, handles it the best way they can. But again, I still judge both of them as long as we're not hurting people. And see, and that's where, for me, you know, whatever, Zeta, Timmy, take that away, Naomi, for her to do some of her behavior, again, I just felt like was so unnecessary. And again, just could lead to, I don't want to say not a dangerous environment in that sense, but it just does not create a healthy environment, a safe environment to just kind of tell your side as adults, leave it there, and then just keep moving into and prospering in your own lives without all the bull and BS. Now, in saying that, I do see that a lot of fans, there was some fans like, don't be attacking people. Don't feed into messiness or foolishness, okay, guys? And I say that hopefully for Zeta and Timmy, but I do understand also that they are human, and sometimes we can get caught up in emotion. And especially when we feel like somebody has hurt us, whether, you know, you feel like it's real or not, it's your perspective and your hurt is real. And sometimes we'll do things out of character and feed into our feels. Now, sometimes that's where we need a good little friend to take our phone away. But, you know, as if we see stuff come up, you know, just let it die, let it rest. Or, you know, we can always talk about it in a safe space here. So let me guys know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about Naomi and her little messages. Let me know what you think or what you think Timmy's going to say. And just let's break it down, guys. And I look forward to seeing you real soon. You guys know it's Zeta Confidential Mondays tomorrow. So we're going to see what Zeta has to say, because she did say she was going to be dropping you know, more information again, just from her perspective. And I think it's awesome that she did not release everything so she can have a chance to kind of reflect and, you know, take stuff in her own time. Timmy, also, I know some people, and initially, even myself, was upset that he did not just drop everything and just tell it all. Just like, oh my God, just say it, like whatever. But it is okay to not be reactionary, because sometimes, as we see with Naomi, possibly Timmy's sister, sometimes being reactionary is not all It does not always put you in the best light, and it's always not the best decision. So, but we shall see. We're going to keep up with it. If you have not clicked that button and you've listened to Storytime and gotten this far, make sure you click that button and you'll be a part of the family. And we're always going to break it down. It's always going to be in love. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys tomorrow. Maybe later on in the day. Who knows? We never know. Talk to you guys real soon.